Brothers and sisters, God bless you. Today I feel the need to open my heart and share something I've never experienced in my walk with Christ. I speak to you from the depths of my being. With trembling hands and tears still blurring my vision, I just woke up half an hour ago, and I still feel like my strength is failing me. My body feels heavy, my soul burns, and my mind struggles to comprehend what my eyes saw. It wasn't a dream, I repeat. It wasn't a dream because dreams vanish when you open your eyes. But what I experienced remains as real as this chair I'm sitting in. I was awake, lying in bed, when suddenly a jolt in my spirit made me open my eyes and see what I never thought I would witness in my Christian life. The atmosphere in my room changed. It was as if an invisible shadow had entered, and suddenly, the peace left my chest. My lips trembled, and my first reaction was to call Franklin because I needed to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Franklin, something's happening, I said in a broken voice. Half asleep, he turned toward me with a confused expression, but I couldn't imagine what I was seeing with my own eyes. Suddenly, I was transported to a place that wasn't my room. I was inside a church, but not physically, it was my spirit that was observing. The temple was full of people, familiar and unfamiliar faces mingled. All in the same state of despair. I saw women crying out with their hands to heaven. Men running from one side to the other, young people weeping, and in the air, a confusion so great it tore at the soul. Some were shouting, "What happened? What's happening?" And a voice thundered, clear and powerful, resounding not only in the place but within me, "Christ has come." Those words pierced like a two-edged sword. Hebrews 4:12 weren't just an echo, they were pronouncements, they were truth. I moved without knowing how, from church to church. In some, I saw almost empty temples, in others, barely 2 or 3 people. In some, there were confused crowds. The most terrible thing wasn't the physical absence, but the spiritual emptiness I perceived. Those who were there seemed lost in a darkness from which they couldn't escape. And again, the voice, like thunder shaking the heavens, repeated, "Christ has come." My heart was beating so hard I felt my chest would burst. My skin prickled, and the air in my lungs became scarce. It wasn't human fear, it was a reverent awe, like when the presence of God descends upon a place and fills everything. Then I understood I wasn't dreaming. This was real, too real. Trembling, I touched Franklin, shaking him desperately. "Christ has come, Franklin. Christ has come." Confused, he said to me in a serene voice, "Calm down, woman, calm down." But how could I calm down when I was seeing what I never thought I would witness? It was as if the veil had been torn, and my eyes were beholding what so many preachers had announced from the pulpits, the coming of the Lord, the rapture of his church. At that moment, I remembered Jesus' words in Matthew 12:42, "Watch, for you do not know on what day your Lord will come." And I shuddered because I understood that those words weren't theory, they were life. They were a warning. Brothers, believe me. I'm not one for recording videos or posting my experiences. I consider myself small before God, just another servant. But what I experienced has left its mark on me, and keeping quiet about it would be like extinguishing a burning lamp in the darkness. This message isn't for entertainment, it's for awakening. Because while I was watching those scenes, I wondered how many of those who serve in churches today preaching, singing, and praying are truly prepared, and how many, sadly, will be left behind when Christ comes for his people. In one of those visions inside the church, I felt my spirit tremble as I saw distraught faces and people screaming in despair. And everyone was repeating the same thing, "Christ has come, brothers and sisters." I can't describe in words the anguish I felt. It was a deep lament, an indescribable pain, as if my very soul were being torn apart. I clung to Franklin, seeking comfort, but nothing could calm me. Everything inside me screamed, "Christ has come." And what surprises me most even now is that I was awake. They weren't vague images from a dream. They were realities I could touch with the eyes of my soul. I don't want to stop here because I know that as I tell this, Many of you feel the same as I did, a chill running through your body, a holy fear reminding us that Christ is coming soon. And I'm not saying this, the word says it, 1 Thessalonians 5:2, the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. That's why I'm speaking to you from the heart. Don't put off until tomorrow what you should do today. If you are a Christian, stand firm in God. If you haven't yet surrendered your life to Christ, this is the moment to do it. And before continuing with what follows in this experience that transformed my life, I want to ask you something very special. Hello, if this testimony it has begun to touch your heart. If you feel that God is speaking to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video so that others may also awaken. Leave your comment for edification and like it. I don't do it for numbers or fame, but because I know that this message has to reach many who are still asleep. What I saw afterward was even more shocking. When I closed my eyes to try to calm down, it was useless. The vision continued like a movie. I couldn't stop. I was inside another church. I don't know how I got there, but my spirit understood that God was showing me what would come after the rapture. The place was packed with people, but the atmosphere wasn't one of worship or singing, or sincere prayer. It was an atmosphere of chaos. I heard heartbreaking screams. A woman was crying, hugging a pew, hitting the floor with her hands. A man in a suit, probably a leader, was running around aimlessly, as if looking for a way out of a pain he couldn't calm. A younger man was shouting, "Lord, forgive me, don't leave me." Again and again, like an echo shattering all hope, the voice of Christ resounded. I saw desperate people raising their arms to heaven, but on their faces there was no peace, only torment. Many asked aloud what happened, what had become of them, and others, silent with lost gazes, understood that it was already too late. I watched and felt myself being torn apart inside, because they weren't strangers, they weren't characters from a distant story, they were people like you and me, brothers and friends, believers who had once praised God, who had once preached, who had once been examples in their congregations. And yet there they were, weeping, trapped in a reality they never thought they would live. I remember that in one of those churches, my gaze fell upon a young man who had been a musician. I had seen him play with passion in worship, raise his hands, and weep with emotion when he felt the presence of God, but at that moment I saw him with his face distorted by anguish, his hands trembling, and a cry that seemed never to end. He knelt, he rose, he fell again, like who knows what the greatest opportunity of their life lost. Another detail that struck me was seeing people with Bibles in their hands, but the pages looked burned. It wasn't a literal fire, but more like a spiritual sign. They had held the word in their hands, they had heard the truth, but they hadn't lived it, and now, even though they tried to take refuge in it, there was no more opportunity. I felt my body tremble even more violently. Franklin whispered through tears, "This isn't a dream, this is real." I shook him again as if I needed him to witness the same thing. Franklin hugged me and said, "Calm down, everything is all right," but I knew it wasn't all right. Nothing was all right. The vision intensified. It was as if the Spirit of God was transporting me from one temple to another, from one congregation to another. In some places, there were barely 2 or 3 people left, in others, a confused crowd wondered what had happened, but in all of them, absolutely all of them, the cry resounded like a hammer striking the heart, "Christ came." I stood watching, for a moment, the face of a pastor I had known for years. He was preaching with passion, but at that moment I saw him broken, sitting in a corner with his hands on his head, repeating, "It can't be, it can't be." And inside me a voice said, "Many spoke of me with their lips, but their hearts were far from me." Matthew 15 verse 8. The pain was unbearable, not only because I saw it, but because I felt it. I felt the desperation of those people, their cries entered my ears as if they were my own. The echo of their voices tore me apart. I can't explain how, but at the same time as I observed, I heard within my spirit a firm warning, "This is what will happen if you don't prepare." And I understood that this vision wasn't just a warning for me, but for anyone who wanted to listen. Franklin hugged me tighter, trying to calm me. But I cried with even more desperation. It's not a story, Franklin, it's not a dream. Christ came, Franklin. He tried to soothe me, but my soul knew that what I was witnessing was all too real. In the midst of that anguish, the voice of God resounded in my heart with a verse I had read so many times, but which now acquired eternal weight, because you know perfectly well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 2-3. Today I was broken like never before, because I understood that it doesn't matter how many years you've been in the gospel, it doesn't matter if you preach, if you sing, if you serve at an altar, but what really matters is being prepared, watching with your lamp lit. And that preparation isn't achieved with appearances, but with real intimacy with God, brother. As I write this, I want you to know that I'm not doing it to scare you, but to awaken your spirit. God, if you have life today, if you can read and listen to this testimony and give thanks to God, because you still have time to stand firm in Him. The rapture is not an old wives' tale or a made-up fable. It is a reality that will happen in the blink of an eye, as 1 Corinthians 3 verse 52 says. And when that moment arrives, there will be no time to run, nor to ask for forgiveness, nor to relight the lamp that has already gone out. I saw it, I lived it awake, and today I share it with you so that it doesn't surprise you like a thief in the night. When I thought the vision couldn't intensify anymore, I felt myself being taken out of the temples. Suddenly, I was no longer inside a church but in the middle of the city streets. It was as if my feet touched the pavement, but my body remained in bed. The Spirit guided me, showing me scenes that tore me apart even more. The streets were full of confusion. People were running aimlessly, some barefoot, others with torn clothes, as if in their desperation they had forgotten everything. I recognized faces, brothers and sisters in faith, preachers, leaders of prayer groups, men and women, whom I had seen ministering with passion at the altars, and yet that they were, with wide eyes, tears streaming down their cheeks, running as if trying to reach something that was already gone forever. The most shocking thing was hearing their voices. Many were shouting through loudspeakers, "Christ has come! Christ has come!" And that cry was repeated from mouth to mouth, like an echo that traveled through every corner, every avenue, every nook of the city. It was a desperate cry that brought not hope but lament. There was no joy in that cry, it was not a hallelujah, it was a woe is me, disguised in the words "Christ has come." I saw an older man who had been known in the community for his faith. He always greeted people with "God bless you" and read the Bible in the plazas. Now I saw him sitting on the sidewalk with a lost look, murmuring to himself, "Why did I stay? Why, Lord?" He pounded his fists on the ground as if trying to wake up from a nightmare, but it was useless. There was no waking up, that was the reality. I kept walking, although I don't know if I was really walking or if only my spirit was being carried away. And I came across a group of young people. Many of them had been worship leaders known for their passion in services. But now I saw them running aimlessly, their feet scraped from the asphalt, screaming and crying. Some were hugging each other, others were beating their chests, and all were repeating the same thing, "Christ has come." My soul trembled because I understood that gifts didn't matter, talents didn't matter. It didn't matter if you preached or sang if your heart wasn't aligned with God. Jesus said it clearly in Matthew 7 verse 21, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." The echo of those words resounded in my mind. How many times do we hear "Lord, Lord" on the lips of so many, and yet how many truly do the Father's will? The vision showed me that many had lived a life of appearances, they had let themselves be carried away by religious routine. They had neglected intimacy with God, and now in the streets, lament was their only companion. I also saw well-known preachers, men who filled temples, who had thousands of followers on social media, who were admired by multitudes, and yet that they were, walking barefoot, their suits wrinkled, their voices breaking, some repeating, "How is this possible?" I preached, I delivered, I prophesied. And immediately I remembered the words of Jesus in Matthew 7 verse 2223, "Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers." That passage came alive before my eyes. It was as if each scene were an illustration of those words. Those who saw the streets were not unbelievers, they were believers who had gambled with their salvation, who had set their eyes on the things of this world, who had allowed themselves to be dragged down by vanity, pride, or hidden sin. The atmosphere was so heavy I could barely breathe. The voices multiplied, the echo of "Christ has come" resounded in every direction. I felt my chest tighten and my tears fell uncontrollably. "Lord have mercy," I whispered from the depths of my soul. In the midst of that vision I heard another voice, not from the desperate men, but from heaven, firm and clear. "This is just a taste of what will happen. Tell them to prepare today." That phrase pierced my heart. I understood that God was not showing me this to scare me, but to give me a mission, to warn, to awaken, to shake those who still sleep spiritually. I looked again at Franklin, who was still holding me in his arms in the real world. He was trying to calm me, but I could barely speak. I just kept repeating, "Franklin, Christ has come, Christ has come," and every time I said it, I felt the truth pierce me deeper in my soul. Brothers and sisters, I don't know how to express in words what I saw in those streets. The pain was unbearable, the despair indescribable, the emptiness terrifying. But what impacted me most was that it wasn't people who had never heard of Christ, but those who had confessed him one day, yet hadn't lived for him. The vision ended with an echo that seemed eternal. "Christ came. Christ came," and as those words resonated in my ears, I remembered what the scripture says in Matthew 12 verse 44, "Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect." Upon hearing that verse in my heart, I understood that this experience wasn't just for me. It was an urgent call for all of us, because, even though the world ignores it, even though many mock, the day of the Lord is approaching, and only those who are prepared will ascend with him. When I thought I had seen enough pain in the churches and on the streets, the vision took an unexpected turn. Everything around me began to fade, the voices grew quiet, the faces of despair blurred, and suddenly, a chilling silence enveloped me. It wasn't peace, it was a heavy silence, like the calm before a storm that threatens to destroy everything. Then I saw it, a dense darkness, thicker than night, began to descend upon the earth. It wasn't like a power outage or natural nightfall, it was something supernatural. A black blanket covered the entire sky, closing in, and what little light remained vanished in an instant. It was a darkness that not only extinguished my sight but seemed to suffocate my soul. I felt the temperature drop, the air grow heavy, and each breath was like inhaling fear. That darkness wasn't physical, it was spiritual. I could sense it came from hell itself, as if the devil had cast his shadow over all humanity. I brought my hands to my face, trying to cover my eyes, but it was no use. That darkness seeped in, trying to penetrate my heart. It was then that I hugged Franklin even tighter, trembling like a frightened child. "Franklin!" I cried out in a broken voice, "Christ has come." He, without understanding what I was seeing, he answered me in a soft, calm voice, "Everything is fine." But I knew that nothing was fine at that moment. Franklin looked me in the eyes and said seriously, "That is the darkness that it will cover the earth." And his words struck me hard, because even though he wasn't seeing what I was seeing, it seemed that the Holy Spirit was confirming it. His lips were uttering the same thing my spirit understood. That darkness wasn't a simple symbol, it was a real warning of what would soon happen. I looked upon this world, and my heart beat so hard I felt it would burst from my chest. That darkness advanced like a thick river that flooded everything, houses, buildings, mountains. Nothing was beyond its reach. It was as if the earth itself had been enveloped in a veil. What shook me the most was that within that darkness, I heard wailing. Muffled cries came from different places, but I couldn't see the faces. They were blood-curdling cries, voices that seemed to say, "It's too late. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't respond. It was like being paralyzed. Observing a scene that overwhelmed me, all I could do was cry out, "Lord, have mercy on your people." But the voice from heaven was clear, "This is necessary. Only those who are in me will be delivered." Today I realized something deeper, that darkness didn't just represent a physical phenomenon but the spiritual state of the world when Christ has taken his church, a humanity without light, without hope, without guidance. I immediately remembered the words of Isaiah 60:2, "For behold, darkness will cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples, but the Lord will rise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you." And I understood that the difference between those who will go with Christ and those who will remain will be precisely that some will be in the glory of his presence, and others in the despair of darkness. Brothers and sisters, I cannot describe in words the weight of that darkness. It was as if every corner of the planet were covered by a shroud. The animals fell silent. The wind stopped. The waters seemed to freeze. It was a total paralysis. The earth was lifeless. I wept in despair. Trembling, I told Franklin, "Hold me, please, hold me." Christ came, Franklin, Christ came. He and I, not fully understanding, hugged me tightly, trying to calm my sobs. But the truth is, there was no human comfort for what I was seeing. The vision took me to places I had never imagined. I saw entire cities plunged into darkness, streets that once shone with lights and were now sunk in the deepest blackness. There were no lamps, no moon, no stars. It was as if the entire universe had closed its eyes. The most terrifying thing was feeling that in the midst of that darkness there was not only an absence of light, but an active presence of evil. It was as if millions of demons had been unleashed, roaming the earth freely. I didn't see them clearly, but I could perceive their evil croaks, their mocking laughter. Chains dragging in the invisible. I understood that this was the consequence of a world without the church. The spiritual restraint had been removed, and the devil was having a party in the midst of despair. My lips could barely. I tried to speak the words, but inside I kept repeating, "Lord, keep me in your presence. Don't leave me here. Please don't let me stay." And the Spirit answered me silently, reminding me of what Revelation 3:10 says, "Because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world, to test those who die on the earth." Today, that verse was like a ray of hope in the midst of the storm, because I understood that even though darkness will cover the earth, God has promised to protect his own. That promise is what should drive us to live in holiness, to watch, to remain steadfast until the end. When the vision began to fade, all that remained was a cry in my heart, "Christ is coming soon." And when I opened my eyes and returned to the reality of my room, I was still trembling with tears in my eyes, feeling that my life would never be the same again. Brothers and sisters, what I saw was not an invention, not a passing dream, it was a revelation. That left a mark on me, a warning from heaven to wake up, because while many are distracted by the things of this world, time is running out, and when Christ comes for his church, darkness will cover the earth. I sat on my bed trembling like never before. The clock struck the hour, but I didn't know if it was day or night. Everything around me seemed distant, alien, as if the world I lived in was no longer the same. I had seen churches in despair, streets filled with lamentations, and a darkness that covered the earth like a shroud from hell itself. And even though I was back in my room, the feeling was the same. My life would never be the same again. "Franklin, I can't keep this to myself," I told him between sobs. He looked at me with compassion, not fully understanding what had happened, but he knew that what I had seen had marked my soul. I'm not one to record videos or share my experiences in public. I've always considered myself small before God, someone who doesn't seek the spotlight or applause. But what I experienced doesn't allow me to remain silent. It's like a fire in my bones, like the prophet Jeremiah when he said, "I will not mention him or speak any more in his name." Yet his word was in my heart like a burning fire shut up in my bones. I tried to endure it, but I could not. Jeremiah 20 verse 9. That same fire burned and I tried to hold it back, but the images kept coming back. The screams, the contorted faces, the darkness that suffocated the earth. I knew that if I didn't speak, if I didn't share it, I would be doing a disservice to my own soul and to those who need to hear this warning. I got up with difficulty, every muscle felt heavy, but I did it. I felt God telling me to speak, not to be silent, because what I saw was real. And as I did, my tears fell without stopping. I thought of so many people who are entertained by the things of this world, Christians who are distracted by vanity, by daily worries, by what is fleeting. What will become of them if Christ were to come right now? I saw, like a movie in my mind, sisters in the faith busy with pointless arguments, in ministry competitions, wanting to stand out more than others, forgetting what is most important, an intimate relationship with God. I saw young people chasing after trends, trapped in social media, more concerned with the approval of men than with the approval of Christ. I saw men devoted to work, accumulating wealth but neglecting their own lives. My soul was shaken, and I understood that all of that will remain here. The Spirit reminded me of the words of John 2 verse 17, "The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever." And that truth resounded within me like thunder. Everything this world offers is fleeting, houses, cars, money, titles, fame, all will remain. Only the eternal will remain. While I was thinking about this, I also heard the lament of those in the vision. They said, "Oh, what is coming for the earth is great, very great." And I understood that this lament was more than human fear. It was a belated recognition of what God had always warned us about. Brothers and sisters, I was there, sitting on my bed with trembling hands, and all I could repeat was, "Lord, help us to be prepared." Because if there's one thing I understood in that experience, it's that there is no time to lose. We cannot continue to be entertained by things that perish. We cannot continue to postpone our consecration. The time is now. I don't know how to explain the pressure I felt in my chest. It was as if every breath was a reminder that my life had I've been stretched out a bit longer to deliver this message, and at the same time, the weight of reality made me weep inconsolably. I saw myself as someone who had been pulled from a life-threatening accident just to tell what happened, not because I deserve it, but because God in His mercy allowed me to witness it. And understanding that, I realized this testimony wasn't mine, it belonged to the Lord, and I had to share it. I thought about how many Christians are playing with their salvation. Some say, "God knows my heart, nothing's wrong today." Others claim, "I'll consecrate myself later, now I want to enjoy life." And yet the Bible makes it clear in Matthew 12:44, "Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect." And that verse became like a hammer pounding in my mind because that's the reality. He will come at an hour we do not expect. He will come when some are working, others are sleeping, others are even preaching. He will come in an instant, and there will be no room for excuses. As I reflected, I looked at Franklin with tears in my eyes and said, "If after this we continue as before, it will be our downfall. This has to transform us, Franklin. We can't go on as if nothing happened." He felt it silently, and in his gaze I saw concern mixed with love, like someone who understands that what God showed is no game. Then I decided in my heart, I will speak, I will preach, I will testify because time is short. My life will never be the same again, and even if my voice trembles, even if my face is wet with tears, I will repeat it as many times as necessary. Christ is coming soon. But what I saw was not an invention, not a product of my imagination, it was a clear warning from heaven. And if God showed it to me awake, it's because He wants me to speak it awake, to proclaim it in my life, not to remain silent. I don't know how long I remained embraced by Franklin, my body curled up as if wanting to protect myself from something that cannot be seen with the eyes, but is felt with the whole being. The room was in silence except for my ragged breathing and the murmur of my prayers. Sometimes I raised my voice and said, "Lord, have mercy." Other times, only my tears spoke. Franklin held my shoulders, looked at me with a mixture of tenderness and concern, and asked very slowly, as if afraid of breaking something sacred, "What did you see?" I swallowed, my lips moving before the words came out. I saw churches filled with wailing. I saw streets with brothers running in despair, and I saw a darkness so thick it seemed to devour the earth. I closed my eyes. The images returned with brutal clarity, the voice like thunder repeating, "Christ has come." The temples with barely 2 or 3 people beating their chests. The sky without stars. I wasn't asleep, Franklin, I was awake. It was real. I lived it with my eyes open. He squeezed my hands. "Look," he said calmly, "let's breathe. Think about what time it is, what day it is. Can you call someone?" His questions, so human, pierced me like an earth wire. I picked up the phone with still trembling fingers. The screen showed me the time. Date, everything in its place as if the world were still the same. I swiped through the contact of a sister from church. I heard the ringtone, and when she answered with a sleepy voice, "Hello?" I could only manage to say, "Are you okay?" "Everything is normal," and she, confused, replied that yes, she was sleeping. I hung up, but not before asking her to pray. I put the phone on the nightstand. Franklin kept looking at me, waiting for my soul to find space to put the unspeakable into words. "It's not hysteria," I said, "it's not just any old scare. There's something inside me that confirms it. The Lord showed me what many will experience if they don't prepare." And then the question that shamed me the most pierced my chest like an arrow: what if it already happened? What if it all happened and I'm here without realizing it? God, the thought left me breathless. Franklin hugged me tighter. "You're here with me. God isn't a God of confusion. If He showed it to you, it was so you could speak, so you could awaken others." But the lump in my throat wouldn't go away. My mind traveled and returned with the same insistence persisted, and if it had already happened, and if the voice I heard wasn't a warning but a verdict, and if my name wasn't ready, I got up slowly and took a few steps around the room. Like someone walking in an invisible sanctuary, with each step a word throbbed like a drum in my spirit. I knelt at the foot of the bed. I had no words. I had heartbreak. "Lord, pray. If you showed me the despair of those left behind, if you let me smell the darkness, if you made me tremble with that Christ, it's not to paralyze me, it's to humble me. Show me if there's anything in me that displeases you, examine me, God. I want to be ready, I want to be right with you." In that silence, not external, but of the soul, the atmosphere changed. I didn't see lights, I didn't hear melodies, but an undeniable presence sat beside me. As if heaven itself inclined its ear, and then, as if someone pronounced each syllable upon my bones, I heard it: "I come." No, it wasn't a timid whisper nor a frightening cry. It was a declaration that commands the universe: "I come." I felt that the phrase wasn't just heard, it pierced me, rearranged me, peeled away layers of fear, and left me with a certainty that admits no negotiation. "Did you hear?" I asked breathlessly. "What did Franklin say?" "The voice," I replied. "He said it again, 'I am coming,' and I burst into tears, but not in the same way. It wasn't the blind weeping of anguish, it was a clean cry, like when the rain washes away the old dust and the street is passable again. I am coming. 3 syllables to break chains, to break the sleep of habit, to light extinguished lamps. I remained on my knees for a long time, sobbing. I began to declare in a low voice promises I knew by heart, but that early morning they burned like new. "Lord, your word says that you are coming for a church without spot or wrinkle, that he who is to come will come and will not delay, that blessed are those who watch, those who keep their garments." Each verse was a rope to my heart to keep me from plunging into the abyss of fear. Then a scene from the vision returned with clarity, me wandering through temples and streets, hearing a single cry, "Christ has come," and reading in faces the common conclusion, "We were not ready." I touched my chest with my closed fist. "Lord, don't let me be unprepared. Let that phrase define me, make me a watchtower. If you showed me what you saw, give me the courage to say it as I heard it, without diminishing it, without embellishing it, without asking permission of fear. Today Franklin sat beside me on the floor, prayed simply, without adjectives, without eloquence, "Father, guard our house, may your holy fear cleanse us, may your peace govern us. Teach us to watch." His voice lulled me, not to sleep, but to rest on the rock. I took a breath. I had to face the other half of the anguish. Not only is it over, but what if what I saw was meant for me, and I fell short? I got up, went to the closet mirror. I wasn't looking for my face, I was looking for my eyes. There was a mixture of weariness and determination in them. "Lord," I said to my reflection, "if you gave me this burden, you will also give me the shoulder to carry it. If you gave me this message, you will also open th.